It
Hey,
works. What's happening? Wholeness vibration.
wholeness wholeness vibrations at Star.
How are you vibrating?
We vibrating freely. You
Ashe.
know? Yes, I call it shine bright like a star you are.
Yeah, man. I tried to start the live, but it seems like they blocked me. For anybody that taps in with this live, I just want you to know that there is an imposter, okay, that is trying to perpetuate my identity and may contact you and ask you for different for money,
Okay.
essentially. So please, like, if you see that activity, just report them and report them, not me. Okay, they have one less R. It's I am Estarr with two R's and I'm three R's. I always roll them. I always roll them. Okay, so just before we get into some good energy,
Mhm.
I just need to let y'all know that. Wholeness.
Okay, do we need to throw up the Palo Santo, the sage? Do we need to do something like that?
Yeah, we could definitely do that. I'm about to go get my dragon's blood. With that being said, right now I'm making a jerk cremini. Am I saying that right? Cremini. It's a type of mushroom. The cremini mushroom.
Criminy,
The
crimini,
crimini.
crimini
The
mushroom.
crim, the crimini mushroom.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
so you making and baking right now?
Huh?
You making and baking right now?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not baking it, but I'm making a nice little wrap for myself for lunch.
Is this one of Enlightened Delights?
See, it was. I actually took a hiatus from making food for other people. Like now I'm just because I wasn't actually cooking for a whole 22 days. I was on the raw lifestyle for 22 days. So I just started getting back into like my culinary, alchemy, if you will.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's going real well though. I'm really grateful. My acknowledgement was to integrate more raw foods with cooked foods. Like if you have rice, wild rice, brown rice, whatever, anything that's cooked, pair it with something that is raw. That was the realization from going through that.
So, so just making it for yourself. So you said you took a hiatus from the creations when it came to being in the kitchen cooking for others.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Right now I'm setting the intention to really just focus in on my wellness
Yeah.
business. Um, and also, I'm going to be working with children
Mm-hmm.
on the weekdays, at a daycare. So, it's a lot less time to be going around trying to feed people. And to be honest with you, it's a lot of energy. Big up to anybody that's out here selling food. It's a lot of energy, y'all, because it's like food prep. Then you got to make the food. Then you got to package it. Then you got to deliver it if you're doing that. You know what I mean? Then you got to clean up.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It is a
it's a
lot of
lot.
energy that goes into it.
Yeah. And to be honest with y'all, I'm at a point where I'm not really I'm not really in that space no more to be doing all of that. But I am accepting clients for private sessions. Um yeah, like I'm always doing yoga. It don't matter where I'm at. It don't matter what I'm eating. It don't matter how I feel. I'm gonna do some yoga. That's my medicine. So
Hmm.
tap in with me for that.
Yeah, I saw something you put up on your story today about it. You were talking about the four things.
Yeah, the four reasons to practice yoga.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, the four reasons.
Four
And
reasons.
when you put your leg up, like there be some positions that you be in. I'll be like, how? You know?
It's well, before I started practicing yoga professionally and teaching people and learning about it, I was actually a dancer and a gymnast.
Okay.
So growing up, I actually I was receiving classes for gymnastics and for dance, hip hop specifically.
Mhm.
So I always was putting my legs behind my head. I just had the ability to do that. So yeah, like what you're seeing right now, that's from years of being able to put my leg behind my head, years of building hip mobility and flexibility. But you know, with certain asanas and sequences, you can definitely attain that. You can attain that posture, but it's going to take time. Like yoga, notice I didn't add like, oh, one reason to do yoga is to do all these fun shapes, because
Right.
you may not be able to do certain postures as you come into practice. You know, you may be very stiff,
Right.
but it's not necessarily for that purpose. I mean, it's beautiful, but there are yogis, right? More so, there are other people in different professions that can do the postures that I do, but they're not doing it for yoga. They're doing it because they want to, because they're inclined to. Maybe they're a dancer, and so they feel like, oh, I'm gonna put my leg up behind my head for this one dance sequence that I just created, you know, or they're gymnasts. So there's different ways to approach it, but I know that the core of yoga is connection with yourself, connection with the divine.
Yeah.
And for me, that's like the number one reason why I continue to do it, is because I'm connecting to myself and devoting time every single day to say, you know what, I'm gonna prioritize my spirit, I'm gonna prioritize my body, I'm gonna prioritize my mind in this moment. So it's really beautiful for that.
It is. Like you said last time, you said, I made it a commitment. You know, you said, I committed myself to this. And speaking of connection, Estarr, when it comes to that inner reflection and that connection with the physical, the mental, and the spiritual, you know, are there some times where you'll be in a pose and you'll get emotional, like you'll have certain release?
I've been crying every single day. Okay, let me just tell you, the more and more you tap in with spirit, you're gonna be so sensitive. Like you're gonna find yourself seeing, like, you know, you see a cat on the street and for whatever reason now you're crying, you know what I mean? Or, you know, you're extremely happy, or you might find yourself, and the lows do occur as well, but it could be from something very small. And I think that right now I'm in a very sensitive space in my life energetically. I think it's because I just have connected with myself. And the biggest thing is accepting yourself, accepting where you're at emotionally. So I have gotten on my mat before, and I didn't know that I had some repressed energy in my hips, you know, because I just recently came out of a relationship, and I didn't know I was carrying, you know, pain in my body. And so as I was moving, and I actually I remember it was I usually am naked during my rising routine. Something I definitely encourage is to do yoga naked. It's just because it helps you connect to yourself even more so. So I was there naked, moving my body, and I was in a hip opening position, and I just started crying. I started pouring. I was like, this is, and all of these memories and energies started to resurface, and then the crying turned into laughing. And it was like, this is exactly why I do yoga, so that I can express myself. And then other times yoga becomes a very like meditative practice for me, where there's really no emotion. It's more like devotion and just focus on self. Like there are times where I'm so centered, where it's like I'm just in movement at this point. And I'm just feeling the movement of my body and connecting to my breath. And so yeah, there's definitely a balance when it comes to that, I believe.
Wow. So even when there's no motion, there's still devotion, you
Uh-huh.
know? I love that. I love that. Wow. So when it comes to, you know, having those moments of laughter or tears, what do you feel have been like the lessons that you've learned from lacrimation, you know, the flowing of tears, like that release? What lessons do you learn from that, where a lot of other people don't allow themselves to have that deep and radical acceptance?
For me, it's I mean, in terms of lessons and just receiving awareness of self, like it's that the purpose of this experience is for us to be. And when I'm experiencing those emotions, instead of saying, no, yoga is supposed to look like this, it's just the lesson is the acceptance that yoga can look like a variety of things. It doesn't necessarily look like you doing handstands all the time, even though that's like super fun. But it's also about like sometimes you may have to just sit still and work on neck mobility, you know, wholeness. And you know, the lesson is accept yourself where you're at. And yeah, accept yourself where you're at. When you step on that mat, release judgment of self, release any expectation of what that's supposed to look like or what that's supposed to sound like, but to just show up as you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's the true lesson.
Wow. That's a true lesson. That's a true blessing, you know, for
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you. So when you say accept yourself where you're at, when you step on that mat,
Mm-hmm.
what was one of the most challenging things for you, Estarr, to accept about yourself?
Mm. The most challenging thing for me to accept about myself. Okay. Um, All right, I gotta give that one a little bit of thought. Most challenging thing for me. On my mat or like in general?
In general. Yeah, but if it came up on the mat, then you can say that.
In general, except about myself. Okay, at one point, when I first, Ashe, at one point when I first started like entering the realm of spirituality, it was really difficult for me to accept my darkness. Because I thought of it as a separate entity. Like I thought that it was somebody else impeding and intruding on me, and so I didn't want to integrate with it. It was more like, oh no, these aspects of this person, and I would really dissociate myself from it. So I think the hardest thing was accepting the things I didn't necessarily like about myself, you know? And I think that was also like jealousy and self-judgment or judging other people. Um, Anger. I did not like anger, and I didn't want to embody it either. It was something that I really just, but there were times where I was angry. So it wasn't like, it was like, but you're embodying it and you don't like this. And I think that was difficult for me because I really wanted to just kind of at the snap of my finger attain this Christ consciousness, and I didn't want to go through the whole, you know, dark and dingy aspect of it because I felt like I had already gone through that.
Right.
In my life, but I wasn't conscious while I was going through that. So as I entered the spiritual realm, it was like, hey, you have to actually be aware of where you're at now, and we understand that you want to grow and expand, but right now you're at this space energetically. So I think, yeah, the most difficult thing for me to accept was my shadow.
Wow.
And, well, how about you?
Yeah, see, that's very reminiscent because there were so many aspects of myself as well, Estarr, that I had to come to grips with, you know? Like you said, you came to grips with what resided in your hips. You had stuff that were in your hips. Sometimes there's these things locked in our bodies, and I feel that's kind of like what it is with the subconscious as well. Anger was something for me that I feel like I had inherited, you know, from seeing a lot of things in my youth, seeing arguments, you know, and so many things that I felt wasn't my own, but I still had to own up to it. You know, I still had to be responsible for that energy. So, you know, it's a really great question. I mean, when it comes to the darkness that a lot of people try to shy away from or avoid or evade, you know, what do you feel allowed you to handle that darkness, And what helped you in being able to channel that darkness?
Oh, yo, I went to the forest and I started screaming. Um, I was in the forest and I just started yelling and kicking it. It's so interesting because I remember when I did that, it was the forest nearby my current apartment, but I didn't know I was gonna live here.
Mm.
So it's legitimately the forest across from my house. I went there and I just started releasing anger, but not with the specifics, you know, not with like, oh, you know, this person and that person in this situation. It was more like I just vocalized it, and I just gyrated my whole body,
Mm-hmm.
and instead of like trying to blame anyone or make it such a detailed situation, I just allowed it to express itself, and I accepted that expression. And
Mm-hmm.
I realized that it was the reason why I was holding on to the energies, because I felt like I couldn't express it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and I did that in a positive way with nature.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to find different ways to transmute the energy because I learned about transmutation. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, so I can channel this not only with my body, but through my words and through spell work. I actually started doing um,
What
spell
spell?
work for acceptance. What did you say?
What do you mean spell work? What is that?
Spell work is what we doing right now. We talking. You know what I mean? It was just more so about affirming what I felt I needed to receive in order to kind of like move on and heal from those situations. Like, I'm protected. I'm safe. And I think most of the time, that anger was coming from a deep space of like depression and sadness and anxiety. And so me affirming strength over my body and affirming, you know, safety, security. It was really a lot of root chakra work. I realized when you are experiencing a lot of fear, that has everything to do with your root chakra. There's a lack of stability within your life, you know. So, and whether that's financial, emotional, physical, it will manifest as some sort of anger if you're repressing your sadness. I feel like anger isn't necessarily an energy of its own. It always feeds off of other energies. So you
Mm-hmm.
can find yourself being angry because of sadness, or because of anxiety, or because of you know, feeling left out and isolated, you know. So I realized that it was just a symptom of something even deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And I also started doing a lot of shadow work. I was like, let me actually like write down what it is that I don't like about myself. Let me write down these things and see them, and then affirm that I love these things about myself. And I love these things so much that I will set these things free. I will let these things go. And that's how I've attained this awareness of myself and devotion to myself, is by accepting myself. So and
Yeah,
how did you overcome your situation?
I love that. I love, and thank you for sharing that. You know,
Yeah.
I know so many people needed to hear that. I needed to be reminded of that. You know, sometimes we need a refresher because, oh my goodness, when it comes to that level of acceptance and to be able to reach that point, you're okay with the way you are in this now moment,
Mm,
you know? Because for years, I don't know about you, Estarr, but there were times where I would look in the mirror and I didn't like that version of me looking back. You know,
mm,
it was something that I felt that I lacked, you know? So there were so many times where I didn't feel like I was in that alignment. But I think, like you said last time, we were kind of going along the lines of not being off path or not being off beat, but kind of going with the flow, going with the motions and growing with it, you know, grow through what we go through in that way.
mm,
So what you said about the you know, that struck me because they do say that in order to change the fruit, you have to change the root,
mm,
you know,
mm,
as above, so below. So when it came to the sacral chakra, I saw you put up something the other day where you were sitting down and you were going around the bowl and you had sound and it was like a sound healing with the bowl. So that was something that was releasing the sacral, and then you were singing as well with it. So when you said that you went into the forest and you started shouting, you started letting everything out with the shout, you know, these are ways that we can get these emotions moving, you know, get it grooving. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like 100% imperative that we transmute. Because you could express it all you want, but if you don't change your perspective of whatever it is, then it won't necessarily go away. You'll just be in this perpetual state of expression.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, they do that when I don't know if you've ever heard of the term of like, oh, let me vent. Let
Yeah.
me vent. I need to vent. But it's like, yeah, you're venting. And you're going on and on about the shit that you don't like. This, that, and third, and this person did that, da, 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 da. And it's like, okay, you're done now. And how do you feel? Not that much better. I still actually I feel like a little bit more angry, and it's because you're only expressing that emotion, but you're not transmuting it. You're not saying, you know what, that happened. However, I'm grateful for what I experienced because now I have learned blah, 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 blah. And then so now you're like taking it and you're completely changing your perspective of it. And so you can actually grow from that experience.
Mm-hmm.
So that's step one. If you need to express it, but make sure that you transmute it,
Right.
because otherwise, what you doing?
Right. Right. You remind me, it's like, you know, they have the saying like new levels, new devils, right?
Mm.
And sometimes I like to think when it comes to perspective, new angles, new angels, you know? So it's,
I like that. Thank you so much.
go ahead.
I said thank you so much for saying that.
Right. Because it's not always about what we look at that matters, but what we see, you know? Yeah. Yeah. So perspective is key, for sure. Wow.
Y'all, the rap that I just made.
So what?
I made a rap. It's fire.
Spit that.
Huh?
You gonna spit that?
Oh no, not a rap. Like a rap that
Oh.
you eat. Oh man. But I do know that we wanted to talk about the
Avatar. Yeah.
yo.
Avatar too.
I'm going to go see the Avatar. Go and see the movie, man. Okay, that movie was so beautiful. I mean, yeah, beautiful. Like I said, I've been crying every day, so I was up in there crying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because they're really they're depicting basically tribes, you know, the original tribes. And truth of the matter is, y'all, we are all the Avatar. I definitely made a post about this one day, but there's an element, and there may be all of the elements that you resonate with, but I know some people, they resonate more so with a particular element. And the same thing was shown in the Avatar, the second one. They had like a water tribe.
Mm-hmm.
So the original avatars, they're like jungle. They're like jungle avatars, and they're more so like with the earth element.
Mm-hmm.
And so they literally adapted differently to their environment. And then there was another tribe, and they were water spirits.
Mm-hmm.
They had very similar ways of existing, but it was different in that they honored different elements a little bit more. So yeah, that definitely I felt is applicable to us as beings. Like I feel like we all have a soul tribe, you know, we all have this divine clan of people that we resonate with. And you may be from like, you may have resonance with different elements, but ultimately what I felt truly was that we are all one through that movie Unity, y'all. It's just so beautiful. And have you watched it?
Yes, you know, and I related most to the character. It was the boy that was usually going off and getting in trouble, the boy that was the outcast,
Oh,
and he was the one that made friends with the other outcasts. Like there was a spirit animal in the water that he made friends with. And which one of the Navi or which one of the tribes, you know, the characters did you resonate with the most, you think, Estarr?
Oh man. Okay, I think it was, you know, in the water tribe, they had a daughter.
Yes.
It was her.
Okay.
For
Why?
whatever reason, I felt like she was me. I was like, that's, if I had to be anybody in the show, it would, in the movie, it would be her. See, I can't remember their names because I don't know why it just slipped my consciousness. It's just, and I think it's because of there's not much character development. More so, there's a lot of like communal development. Like, hey, this is us as a tribe, and this is how we're expanding. Everything is about the tribe. So if you kind of, I mean, you could focus on one person at a time, but that to me overpowered one individual. It was like the reason why they even moved and relocated was because of the tribe. Everything was about tribe. But I forgot her name, but she was you know, she was the princess,
Mm-hmm.
and she was the water princess. And I have a deep resonance with water. I'm actually a Scorpio, and it's interesting because Scorpios, you would think that they're not water signs, but they are. And I feel like we have like a spice to us as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why I resonate with her was just because of her willingness and openness to receive them, like almost instantaneously. And she also was very drawn to the outcast. She
Mm-hmm.
was like, he's interesting to me. And then she also embraced his family, like not just him, but she was of service, you know, and she was also teaching his entire family, you know, the children, how to swim and how to breathe, and the words that she said, she was guiding them in meditation. And I was like, that's me. Like, that is definitely me. And she had a deep connection with basically the water element. And there was an acceptance of others. And she also would stand up. She would stand up when she felt like something wasn't right,
Right.
you know, express that. She protected the little girl. She did the best that she could. So much so she ended up being held captive because of it. And I was like, oh, that's definitely me.
Mm.
I've gone through that before. So I was like, yeah, she was one of the characters that the moment I saw her, I was like, if I had to be an avatar, more than likely, I would look like her. I thought
Yeah.
from the moment I saw her.
So a teacher, you know,
Oh,
being in service to others, you
yeah.
know. There were times where she was teaching them how to swim, how to breathe underwater, how to, you know, go through the ocean and really just be in fluid motion, you know, to just have that effortlessness about them. And they had to learn how to slow down their heart rate. What did she say, Estarr? She said, the way of water has no beginning and no end.
And,
Yeah.
and she said something about like before this is the womb of the earth. And when she said that, I was like, that's me. Like, I love honor wombs, y'all. Honor the womb, man. Honor the womb of the earth. We're currently in the womb of the earth, but the water, I feel, that's like the amniotic fluid, you know. That's the amniotic fluid of the earth. And she spoke of it with so much reverence and with so much wisdom, you know, so much so that I forget his name, but the character you resonated with the most, he was able to recite what she said word for word, and I was like, yep, that's me right there.
Right. Wow. Have there, you know, been times in your life where just like the Navi that went from the forest and the jungle over to the water and had to adapt, you know, to a new way of life, to a new way of living in this new area? What can you recall where was a time where you were in a completely different environment and you had to learn quickly, you know, how to be accustomed?
um so if you don't know, now you know. I was a foster child for 8 years. So being removed from my family, and then um I was doing kinship with another part of my family, but it was a completely different, it was like a cultural reset, because they're Jamaican, like right off the boat, like, you know, so it's like they were speaking differently. Their perspective of children is differently. I went from almost like having my own personality to like, oh, it no matter what you say, you know, me and you na size, yeah, they pick me. And it was like, it was a completely different energy. And, you know, my living situation had changed, my freedom had changed, everything, even to the way that I was eating, that was also changing. I felt like I couldn't vocalize myself in that environment. There was just a lot of like toxicity, and I went from a toxic environment to what felt like an even more so toxic environment because of the way that they just communicate to each other. It was just so abrasive, and I was like, why is this happening? So I had to learn how to adapt over the course of 8 years to that environment, and learn how to still express myself, even though they basically, it felt like they were putting a foot on my neck. Like, it was like, you can't talk. Like, Estarr, shut up, shut up, shut up. I was hearing that like every day, to shut up. Like, it was like, and this is somebody who loves to sing and teach and express themselves. And that was something my mother really cultivated in me. You know, she used to always make sure that I was reading a dictionary or reading a book out loud, and she encouraged me to write my own books, you know. So I was writing books at the age of like 6, and I was just always submersed in some sort of knowledge growing up. So that didn't stop. But the thing is, I love to teach. So I think I was 11, and I wanted to teach them about what I was learning, because I'm like, this is how I learn, is also by expressing to other people what I'm learning. I had an awareness of that. But they you know, they'd be like, oh, Esther's so bright and feisty, she thinks that she know everything. And it's like, y'all can't just listen to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what I'm saying is quality research, quality stuff. If you have a rebuttal, you could let me know, but you don't just go tell me to shut up and go away. Go in. And it's like, what is happening? So it was a different environment, but yeah.
Wow.
And do you have anything within your life?
Yeah, you know, I've always enjoyed the look on someone's face when they are able to register something about themselves that they didn't previously know. You know, when they're able to find something within them, or when they're able to see their own greatness. And I love when people tap into that. So I enjoyed being someone to show people, like, do you know how awesome you are? You know, like, anything I can do, you can do better. There were so many times I'd be on the stage performing, and people would be looking at me like, how did you do that? But I always had the mind that if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Perform?
You know?
You perform? What you be doing? Hold on. Let me hear about this one. I want to hear about this.
Yes. So back in my college days and back in school, there were plenty of performances that we had. And I always would enjoy inspiring someone, you know, be it someone in the audience or someone in the crowd or just anybody. And then through the different mediums, and we're still doing it today. So just like you were saying, back then you were teaching, you know, like they say, each one teach one to reach one, you know, even if it's only one person, that's still more than enough, you know, and that one person can be you. So by learning yourself and you passed it on, you paid it forward, it keeps on going, it keeps on growing. So those were the seeds that I was sowing, not only in myself, you know, planting these seeds in the garden of my mind, but also taking the time to let someone else know you can shine, you know, you can shine too. So that's always been a passion of mine. So thank you for asking. Yeah.
I feel that when talking to you, there's always like it's like a redirection of focus. It's like whoever you're talking to, you're like, I want you to have your moment. Let me ask you questions and inspire you by showing you where you're at. Like, hey, boom, here's this question, as opposed to here's a statement. Here's how I feel. Let me teach you. It's more, can you teach me? Can you show me what you're going through, and what do you think about this? And where you're at, where are you right now? And that's what I realized. So that makes sense to me.
Wow. You know, there's so much that we can learn from each other, you know? There's so much you can learn from another. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for having the willingness to teach and reach so many people. Yeah. Yeah.
Man, I appreciate it. I'm I'm at a point of just like putting positive energy out there into the space, no matter where it goes. You know, releasing an expectation of how many people I want to reach, or just like is whoever is aligned to receive whatever it is that I'm giving, then I know that if I can impact just one person, then I'm changing the world. And it is through one person at a time that you start to accumulate, you know, a mass change. Because in that one seed that you implant, it starts to grow and it bears fruit of its own. And then others will see that fruit and they'll be like, wow, that's beautiful. And then that person plants a seed. So it's not necessarily about, you know, me or the individual. That's another thing I really appreciated about Avatar, was it was not about the individual. It was about the tribe. And learning that you are an extension of the divine. And that was something that I really felt that was prevalent within the film, is they had this awareness that in order to truly be one, they must connect with nature. The antennas, you know, with their hair. And this is why I got locks, you know what I mean? Because I just feel like this is helping me with my awareness to source. But, you know, connection. I was just reading Muapa Ashby's books. Y'all know I've been on my conquest for knowledge and within the wellness space, holistically. And, you know, he said something that really impacted me. He said that allopathic medicine is what Westerners practice primarily, which is you get sick from external causes. Holistic medicine is the awareness that when you get sick, it is from internal causes, that there's something happening spiritually, something happening internally first, before you attract whatever it is that you're receiving. And the greatest cure to that is connection with nature, which is why holistic practitioners, they'll come to you with mantras, spells, you know, things that they say from their mouths. And you know, to Westerners, they're like, oh, all they're doing is chanting. But that is spirit, that is the element of air coming in, and ether coming in to help you. The same thing with herbs. You know, they go and get herbs and they will, you know, turn them into different pastes, or simply take them as they are and place them on your body or burn them. And that's because they're utilizing the elements. It is a connection to source, you know, or they'll make tea, right? Infusing water and utilizing water, or they'll make a spiritual bath with all of the herbs and with spirit by speaking life into it. And they would even light a candle with the intention to get rid of whatever it is that's in the space. You see, you were like, oh, you gotta go get let me go get it. But you gotta go get the dragon's blood, right? And that's because holistically, you know, if you do want to create a way to heal yourself, it would have to be through the use of nature, of what we've received, you know, instead of trying to create something that is inorganic and then ultimately become dependent on it, because it won't solve what you're going through. The cure will always be organic. The cure will always be organic. And so that's one thing that I've realized on my journey.
So working with the elements. Working with the elements. So have you ever seen, you know, I know we were talking about Avatar the film, but Estarr, have you seen Avatar the show, The Last Airbender?
Yeah. Okay, fire, super. I mean, it's all of the elements, and I have a tendency to always say that's fire, and I think it has a lot to do with my upbringing. But yeah, that to me. That watch it if you haven't watched it. It's really applicable to the spiritual journey.
Definitely.
Honestly.
You know, they drop so many gems. It's timeless wisdom. And you know, I know you said we're Scorpios, so we're both water. But if you had to choose, what would be one of the benders that you would be in the show, like be it air, fire, earth, or water? What do you resonate with when it comes to that show?
I, I gotta be honest. I think I know this is interesting, but um, I think it would be if I could do two, because I'm different like that. But it would be water and earth.
Okay, why earth?
Okay, earth because I'm super grounded.
Hmm.
It would probably be earth before water at this point, to be honest with you, because I'm super grounded. You could in the summer, at any time during the summer, you will find me in a tree.
Okay.
You'll find me in a tree. I do not wear shoes during the summer. If I do have shoes, they are slip on, slide off slippers,
Hmm.
sandals
Hmm.
that come instantaneously off the moment I hit grass. I'm always grounding,
Hmm.
always grounding. You know, yeah. Not only that, but like herbs. You know, I really value them and I value earth. Right now, my challenge for myself is to just be able to cultivate life on the earthly plane,
Hmm.
and I do honor the physicality of life, but I also honor the water spirits as well. But I do believe I have a very deep connection to earth.
Yeah.
And there definitely is a lot of water there, but I think it's balanced. To be honest with you, I think that's why I said water and earth. If I had to really choose, it would be both of them,
I
idealistically.
love that, you know, because even in the movie that we were just talking about, Avatar 2, their connection was so deep and so rooted, you know, that even their roots, like they would take their hair or the back of it and they would almost plug in that antenna to the source, you know, either to something in the water or to something in the woods, like they would plug in and they would receive that information. So when certain people talk about how your locks are almost locking in information or they're holding in the light, do you feel that you have increased that, or you're able to feel more the more that you grow it out? Like has it increased in that way? And what has it done for your energy?
Um, so I started my life journey coming out of like the most abusive relationship of my life, and it was either I shaved my head or I locked my hair.
Mhm.
And I used the energy that I had created to further my life,
Mhm.
or I just discarded it. And so I chose to obviously utilize that energy to transmute. Um, Ever since I started my journey, it was like a deep acceptance of myself. I never truly accepted my hair. I
Mm.
never truly accepted it. I always wanted it to be longer than it was. I wanted it to be less kinky. I wanted it to look more like some sort of Latina. I used to wear a lot of weaves and stuff like that. But having locks, it was like, this is who I am. And the longer that they get, it's like a deeper connection to my crown. And I started like during meditation, and this never used to happen to me, but I get waves of like vibrations coming into my crown. And I'm like, what? And before I started my lock journey, I never experienced that.
Never,
Never. What'd you say?
never.
Yeah, never. Never. If I did, it was in the form of like a chill. Like I was just cold, you know? But my head was always very hot and irritated because I I think that was my connection to the divine, man. I didn't have a good connection with I was an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
for years, just because of like the turmoil that I experienced in like the church, being molested and being physically like abused by certain people in the church was like, y'all, this shit ain't real. Like that was that was where I was at. I was like, this can't be real. This can't be real. This is like this is hypocrisy. And so I really leaned into science, and if I can't prove it with the scientific method, then it's not real. And so I really disconnected myself from spirit. And when I went through this process of locking my hair, it was because I had a deeper connection
Mm.
with spirit. I had actually encountered spirits in the physical realm, and I saw their forms. And it was after that where I was like, oh, this is a spiritual plane. This is actually a spiritual plane. Like,
You saw
gee,
their form?
so many other deities are too. Like that was the awareness.
You saw their forms?
Yeah. I also I also experienced well, not me personally, but there were a lot of like possessions happening around me. People like my brother, my grandmother, different family members were being possessed by dark entities. And all of a sudden, just this ardent desire to want to kill me. And I was like, what? And so it was just, I saw the dark side of spirit. I really saw it. I saw energetically, it was just this tall, dark figure. I also heard them. I started hearing voices. And that's when I was like, nah, I ain't going crazy. This is real. This is real. Like, I just started believing that what I was actually hearing was real, because I would like walk in my grandmother's house. And my grandmother's house is haunted, y'all. Listen, this is why you got to cleanse your crib. Like, my grandmother used to throw out my crystals and my herbs. She would go and throw out my candles, like, and yeah. So it was definitely haunted in there. But I would walk through the house, and I would feel the presence of somebody behind me.
Mm.
And then I remember I felt them graze my shoulder, and I was like, nah, nah. And then it was like, then the whispering started. And then when my first eye completely opened, above my head where I used to sleep was two eyes, two dark eyes that stared at me before I went to sleep. And then I also saw a dark dragon. This is what it felt like. It had scales, and it was like hot. It felt very hot.
Mm.
It made me sweat. It felt like a cold sweat.
Mm.
And that's when I realized, when people are going through these disorders of the mind, it's always a spiritual thing. They're being attacked by some sort of dark entity, because that's what it felt like. It felt like all of a sudden I was getting a lot of deep anxiety. But even though I was going through that, I was like, the spirit within me, the light within me said, hey, you need to sit still, and you need to see it. You need to feel it. And then you need to accept that it's there. And that was probably the hardest thing that I could ever do, was actually to sit still and say, okay, I feel this dark spirit circling me. I feel it in this house. But I was like, okay, I need to literally just accept it. And when I did, that's when it became aware that I was aware of it. When I tell y'all, we are spirits, we're spiritual beings. So the spirits, they are actually conscious of themselves. They, like, especially if they're on the physical plane, they actually know that they're there, because that's what it felt like. It felt like it knew that I knew of it. And then after that, things started happening in the house where I was no longer talking to my grandmother or talking to my brother. It was a different energy. It was like it was showing up in the physical plane, and it was only confirming, my superstition at the time. And I was like, okay, evidently spirits are real. And I was like, I need to go experience some heavenly spirits. I'm done with this. I was like, because I could either sit here in denial and just be bombarded by this dark entity and potentially lose my life, or I could leave this house and start to experience some positivity. And when I did, I entered like different realms. I started being in drum councils and, giving back to the community. And I was in such a greater space, and the people that are around me, they're higher spirits. Like they just take care of themselves and they honor me. Like I haven't been disrespected since I made this switch. Like not in the way that I was. The way that I used to be disrespected was like, why would you even, step out of your skin to say something or do something like that to another person who didn't do anything to you?
Mm-hmm.
And so now that I made a change, my reflections, they care about me.
Mm-hmm.
Honor me. They want to listen to me.
Right.
You know what I mean? I haven't had to go through the experiences that I was going through, and it was the awareness that I had to start resonating with lighthearted spirits so I can experience something that was greater than what I was going through.
Yeah.
So yeah, spirits is real, y'all.
Man, Estarr, wow. Thank you for that testimony.
Yeah.
Thank you. And how did you say that the spirit responded when it was aware that you knew of its existence? How did you say that it responded after that?
So that's when the possession started. That's also when it made itself visible to me. Spirits can actually make themselves visible to you. You can call them into your space, and if they feel like they're being honored enough or that they have the ability to show themselves, they will. And that's when I started seeing, like I said, the eyes above my bed. It was like after I acknowledged that it was actually there, I started to be able to see it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like all of a sudden, it was like, okay, she knows I'm here, so I'm going to show myself to her. And it was also just belief and awareness. Like your first eye is what allows you to perceive the spiritual realm. And that may be, you may think of that, oh no, this is just my imagination. It's all in my imagination. Your imagination is your connection to the spiritual realm. So your imagination is real. It is very, very real. Anything you imagine can manifest on the physical plane, so long as you really wanted to. And I think, no, I definitely did. I actually really wanted to see it. I really wanted to see it. That was what my spirit was saying. Like, you need to acknowledge this because it's not separate from you. Right now, you are an extension of it. Mm-hmm. So in order for you to be able to say, all right, let me move on and grow, you need to see that you're connected to this entity. Yeah. Once I saw that, it was like I would see it basically like feet. I remember I'm about to get real descriptive. I remember I was on my bed and I was drawing, and it entered it entered my sacral. So I was in like a child's pose, and it was literally almost like it was having sex with me. Mm-hmm. And that's when I realized that you can, y'all ever seen a scary movie? Scary movie like 2 or 3 or some shit like that, and she was literally having sex with the dark entity. Yo, that's real. Okay, that's actually real. You can have sex with just a spirit. Legit. You can have, they feed off of sexual energy, especially when it is lustful. Oh my God. Dark spirits, they in there. They in the room. They in you. If ever you feel like you being real lustful and there's a lot of lustful energy, yeah. So I had to evolve. That's another reason why, like, even if I were to have sex now, it needs to be intentional. It needs to be love. Like love, because you're so open in that moment. So please be careful, with who you have sex with. Condoms is one thing, but having sex with somebody who is ill-spirited, ill-mannered, who's sick, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, you got to really be careful, because you create energetic agreements with them where they can now access your temple, access your body when they're not even there in the physical. So you'll be able to feel them. They'll be able to know what's happening to you, even when they're miles away.
Whoa. Okay, so almost like a contract.
That's exactly what it is. It's definitely a spiritual contract. When you have sex with somebody, y'all have written spiritual contract, and the reason for y'all having sex is the agreement.
The energetic.
What
You said energetic agreement?
Yeah, the reason for you guys having sex is the energetic agreement. So just that's why I say if you're gonna have sex, do it intentionally. You know, set an intention. Really set an intention. Like sit with your partner in meditative a meditative position, sukhasana, lotus pose. Y'all could even be on y'all knees, but make sure y'all pay your respects to spirit before you have sex. Allow it to be a ceremonial thing, because otherwise you're going to invite a lot of dark energies into your relationship with this person. And that's going to be the contract. They're going to be a part of the contract. You know, that's why in anywhere you go, you got to sign your name on a piece of paper to say, hey, yeah, I'm agreeing to this. And that's what happens on a spiritual level when you literally swap DNA with somebody. So, and I say this because the reason why I was so connected to that dark entity was because I had a partner who was very, very sick, spiritually, mentally, physically. He was not in a positive space, and I would always have sex with him. So that was an expression or a reflection of that. So to safeguard yourself, to protect yourself, it would be to be more intentional and more ceremonial with every exchange, whether that be sexual or platonic, you know, or even with your family members. Be intentional with the things you say and the things you do, so that you could just safeguard your energy.
Yes, that's a whole message. That's a whole word. You know, we needed that. We definitely needed to receive that, you know, pay your respects before you have sex. She said, pay your respects.
Pay your respects before you have sex. Pay your respects before you have sex. No, that's not for real.
Oh my gosh, you know, because you reminded me, Estarr, there's been times where, you know, in that astral realm, when I've been dreaming, there's been times where I had been dreaming and I felt like something had almost infiltrated or violated that space and come into my dreams and was like shape shifting or you know, they had somehow penetrated my psyche. They knew how to conjure themselves into a form that wouldn't set off any alarm bells, you know. And it was almost, it felt like I was violated because that lustful energy was there. And if I, you know, even if I committed the act in my mind, it still felt like a contract. It still felt like an energetic agreement with something that had been there, that was looming, you know, like you said, something was hovering over you, you know, when you looked up. So to be able to overcome your superstition through your own intuition. And then I love what you said, Estarr. You said you were able to surrender to stillness, you know? And that was like you were able to let go of what felt like an illness through stillness.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the cure, y'all. The cure all. That's the cure all. Be still and know that you are God. Be still and know that you are God, man. You are creating this reality. So if you feel like, oh, there's some dark shit happening, be still and know that you are God. You're making that happen. You can change it. You know, but you first have to see whatever it is that you're creating when you close your eyes. And that's the truth. Once you close your eyes, only then will you really be able to see. And I think that's so interesting because, like, I think this whole experience is like a paradigm. It's like we're here, but we're not. It's like, you know, you can see, but you can't. It's like, so you can hear me, but can you really? It's like, so, I mean, that's why I'm saying, you know, balance. That is the key, y'all. The key is balance.
Okay. So when it comes to, like you said before, setting the intention, what do you feel like moving forward? Because we're going into another year, you know, with 2023. What do you feel is the intention that you're really setting to move forward into this new time?
Oh, y'all. Right now, for me, financial stability, financial stability.
Mm-hmm.
I have attained physical stability
Mm-hmm.
in basically all ways. Like I have my own space, you know what I mean? Like I'm consistent in my practice. Like anything on the physical realm, I feel like I really got it. But when it comes to the financial aspect, that's really what I'm calling in for 2023. It's just consistency, because my awareness is that there's a lot of people who are millionaires and they're rich, right? But they are not philanthropists.
Mm-hmm.
They're not investing their money into the world, into nature. They're not investing their money into children, into their development, or into acquiring resources for people who don't have it. And so for me, honestly, that's really what I want to do with my financial abundance. And I have been given direct instructions on how to achieve that goal. And they have notified me, and I give thanks to Spirit, because ultimately everything that we are given as a people is a extension of the divine. It is because of Spirit that you have access to who you have access to, what you have access to, the experiences that you experience. All of that is because Spirit is aligning it so that it can happen. So for me right now, I know that I'm in alignment to be a multimillionaire. I know that. So now it's like, okay, this is what they're telling me to do. Because I mean, you can sit there and be like, I'm a multimillionaire. I'm a multimillionaire. But if you don't got no plan, are you really? You got to make sure that you got a plan. You know, you got a step-by-step plan of action, so that they can start to pour into those streams.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I like to think that wealth is like an ocean. Yeah. Wealth is water, right? I feel like that's why Oshun, big Oshun energy. I have a lot of big Oshun energy, and I'm tapping into that. I give thanks to it. But ultimately, the sea is like a bank, right? And I think that's even a term for water banks. But the sea is like a vast bank. But in order for you as one being to attain just a morsel of that abundance, you need to have a river, a stream. You need to do the work to carve out a river or a stream, so that abundance can start to flow into your area, you know? So right now, and I feel like anybody that's resonating with this, make sure that you set up a passive, very important. If you plan on being a multimillionaire, super rich, you need passive income. You need passive income. You need income that doesn't rely on you to continue to compound. So what I'm going to be doing is purchasing land. Okay. So that's why I'm calling in this financial abundance, because I'm like, that's not a small investment. That's a pretty big investment, and it also requires a lot of upkeep financially. So, but for me, I see this whole matrix. Okay, definitely. One of the butterflies on my wall just fell off. That's just confirmation. But I see that this whole matrix is like a game of Monopoly. The richest people, okay, they have land. The richest people, you don't even know them because they don't need to be known. You're in their establishments. You pay them. You pay them basically to exist. Those are the richest people. The richest people, they have multiple buildings in their name. They have acres of land that they own. And this is because they know that the real abundance is in the resources. That's the most authentic abundance, because, you know, if you're relying on like your talents, eventually you will get old. So once you pass over, unless you can also pass on those attributes and those talents onto your children, it won't continue to make them money. But if you have passive income that's not relying on you at all, that is always coming through, then yeah, yeah, your kids and your kids and your, kids, I'm cutting that out. Your children and your children's children and your children's children, they will be able to receive that abundance and not have to do anything. So for me, it's about getting your capital raised up. Get the capital raised up. 2023, I'm getting my capital raised up. That's what it is for me right now. Yeah, I got this apartment, but I need to make sure I got 5 more. I need to make sure that I got my businesses set up. You know, I want to have my wellness center. So I have to work towards that through consistency, you know. But that's the route that I really want to go in, and eventually I will be monetizing my music career. I just really want to pour thousands of dollars into it first, before I start looking for money from it. I just like, I feel like money speaks. You got rappers that I personally feel like they don't have nothing real to contribute. Everything is fake. It's all about, you know, bitches and money, and you know, it's just, and that's what is accessible to children. You know, I mean, they done turned Baby Shark into like a trap beat, like so, you know what I mean? So I'm like, how did they do this though? They did it because they took their trap money and they invested it into their music career. So they went and they got top like I mean, quality content for a music video. Quality content. They employed at least 30 people to go on whole cameras. They got the whole block bumping they stuff with them. And that's not like, you can't really attain that if you just like, hey, can you do me a favor? Hey, can you do me a favor? Hey, can you do me a favor? That's where the money comes in, where it's like, okay, I'll pay you $20 an hour. And that, to you, that may not be anything, but to them, that's like, you know what, man, I'm gonna show up for you, man, because you will show up for me. And that's the big thing that I'm receiving in 2023 is compensate your reflections. That's what I'm being told. It's like, if you want to see abundance financially, you need to give abundance financially. It's something that, it is an exchange. Money is an exchange. And in order for change, you must exchange, you know? So I'm like, okay, in order to pay my reflections, I got to receive the money to do so. So I'm going to be working with children to solidify a stream of income for myself. And I'm still going to be of service in different capacities as well. But right now, that's the 2023 vision.
Beautiful. Beautiful, Estarr. Thank you. You know, thank you for this. Thank you just for this whole energy exchange. Thank you for creating change. You know, like, there's just so many gems that you've dropped on us. Like, this is only the second live that we've done together, you know, but it's just compounding, like you said. So I love it. You know, congratulations. I can already see your spirit team and even more, you know, streams and forms of income is the outcome. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah. Blessings. Blessings. We'll do it again, and just enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for taking the time, making the time to spend with us. You know, like you said before, sometimes, you know, we might vent and then we're left feeling spent. But no, this is time well spent. This is time well nourished. This is nourishing. So I feel like I'm already flourishing. You know, we blossoming and blooming into 2023. So we'll continue to grow. Yeah.
All right. Wholeness vibrations. I love you. Take care of yourself. Okay.
Blessings. Take care. Take care. Awesome.